Welcome to Startup Health Now, the weekly webcast that celebrates the change makers and healthcare transformers reimagining healthcare. My name is Unity Stoakes, and today we have an amazing discussion with Victor Penev. Victor is an inspiring serial entrepreneur. He previously created Bulgaria's #1 or largest internet company. He's a super dad, and he's the CEO and co-founder of Edamam, and also proud to say you're a healthcare transformer in startup health. Today we're going to dig into Victor's superpowers. We're going to talk about what it's like to be a serial entrepreneur in digital health. And also we'll dig into data-driven solutions in healthcare and really the exciting innovation going on with data and nutrition. Stick around. It's going to be a great show.
It is the duty of leaders to lead, of the creative to create, of the daring to do. The free world expects leadership of us. Its fate and our fate depends upon our leadership. We are industrious, inventive, restless, with the fires that burn within us. But I say that nothing is easy, and the best things are the hardest. And all our troubles, all our immense difficulties, now and in the future, can I say, be solved if we have the will, the courage. The future is to those who take it.
So welcome back. Today we're here with Victor Penev, the CEO and founder of Edamam. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure.
So just to get things started, would love to learn about Edamam and really what's the mission of Edamam?
So Edamam aims to organize the world's food knowledge. Essentially, if you look at it where humanity is right now, we're starting to become a lot more conscious about how food and nutrition impacts our health and well-being. And people are struggling for all kinds of solutions. There's millions of diets, and everybody's trying to understand, what they eat and how, that impacts them. And at the bottom of all this is really an information problem. People need to understand, and there is no information out there, not structured information, not organized in any way. All of it is disjointed, oftentimes very contradictory. And so our mission is actually to organize all this information and make it available to people so they make the right choice about food and ultimately be, much happier, healthier, and live longer. So that's the mission.
So how does it work? Is it for consumers? Is it for the enterprise? Is it a website that people go to?
Right. It's we are a B2B business. Ultimately, we think that we'll make the most impact if we power consumers at every point they make decisions about food. And they make decisions about food at the grocery store, at the restaurant, when they see their doctor. So all those businesses need to be empowered with our technology so that when consumers actually contextually make those decisions, they're able to make them on the spot. We're not shying away from consumer tools, but we think that that's more of a secondary thought of how we achieve the mission. And ultimately, it may be a great business model, but we see B2B as kind of the primary thrust of our effort.
So maybe give an example of how the platform's used by one of your partners. I know you've got many big brands, big companies that use your platform.
Absolutely. So we offer a range of products. We have a database of structured and organized recipes, 1.5 million. We have real-time nutrition analysis using natural language processing, and we have a diet recommendation engine. So various partners use different parts of it. For example, Epicurious, Random House, and in the very near future, the New York Times will be using our nutrition analyzer, so to speak, to add up nutrition to their already existing recipes, or to recipes that their users are adding to their sites constantly. Others like Gannett or Nestle are using our search engine. Essentially we have a proprietary technology to provide diet recommendations around recipes and nutrition, what people need to eat. If I'm vegan and I want to find a meal that's under 300 calories that has broccoli, we can serve you up really high quality recipes around that. So this is the primary ways that people use it. So we have, things like companies like Epicurious and Samsung and Gannett and the New York Times that are using the technology so far. And there's a long range of much smaller companies that are less well known, but still very much use the technology in the same way. Those are catering companies and dietitians and nutritionists and recipe sites and so on.
Interesting. So I'd love to dig in a little to the backstory.
Sure.
What was the inspiration? Was there an aha moment that sort of you had that instigated the creation of Edamam?
Yeah, there is always an aha moment when you start something, but you have a build up to the aha moment. I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I had sold my last company. I was kind of looking at what to do. There are a few things that kind of, came around at the same time. One is, I love food. I cook every day. For me, food is kind of very central to the way I live. And at the same time, I love technology. So for me, as I was thinking through what should I do next, at some point the two things converge, and I realized the problem I talked to you about earlier, that information is very central to making the right food choices. And I knew enough about technology to know, well, maybe we can apply semantic technology to organizing this information. And so that's where the aha moment came. It actually came on a beach in Thailand, if you want, not exact aha moment, but that's when it was like, oh, okay, we can use that technology to solve that problem. So let's see if we can do it. And then I spent about a year out of my time and money to prove that actually this is doable, because semantic tends to be one of those, very thrown around terms, and, a lot of companies fail doing it. My hypothesis was that, food is a contained enough vertical so that we can meaningfully apply the technology to solve the problem, and, the rest is history, as they say.
So I'm actually interested in that moment on the beach in Thailand. So you had built Bulgaria's largest internet company. You've done a lot of great things. Was there an opportunity for you to sort of step outside of the day-to-day grind of running and building and reflect? And is that how this new idea emerged?
Absolutely. And, it's, I always say the academics have figured it out long before everybody else. Every 6 years they take a sabbatical, and I think it's one of the healthiest things that you can do and the best things you can do career-wise. So I was lucky enough to sell my company and take a year off. And once you take a year off, a lot of things kind of fall into, their own categories, and you get a perspective on life and whatnot. And I had many, many thoughts of what to do next. Some of them starting in companies, some of them, being involved in a nonprofit organization, so on and so forth. But eventually, when you have that much time, you start really reflecting about your true nature and who you are and what drives you, what motivates you. And for me, entrepreneurship is, something. It's a way of life. It's not something I even do. It's the way I live. So for me, it became apparent, that I wanted to start something new, and then it was a question of what it is and what's your passion. Mm-hmm. And once you focus on that, and somebody told me at the beginning of my career, said, there's only two things you need to do to find a perfect job. One is to find what you love, and two, to find somebody to pay for it. Right. And I've always followed that advice, and that's essentially it. So first thing is first what I love, and it was food and technology. Now we're figuring out who is paying for it.
I think a lot of people in general, they get scared about the concept of pausing, stopping. So to take a year off, I think of a lot of entrepreneurs would be reluctant to do that because they're thinking, oh, I'm not going to keep progressing. I'm going to lose out. I'm going to miss. But what I'm hearing is that can actually be an opportunity to maybe leap forward. Is that
absolutely
fair to say?
I'm 100% convinced. It's a leapfrog opportunity. It's essentially you can keep moving through your daily grind, and it's in human nature. We tend to kind of get stuck into the details of day to day and to do this and do that. And, there was recently an article somewhere about, how being busy has become a status symbol and what have you. So it's very easy to, what I perceive, waste time by just doing what you do day to day. If you can step out, then you are able to make this giant leap. And, it's not to say that you have to do it right now, right here. There is, this theory of quantitative accumulation leads to qualitative leaps. There is a moment in time when you've done enough of something, and then when you step back, you can really kind of jump to the next level. So I would.
And do you think that's every 6 years? You mentioned the 6-year sabbatical.
It just happened that academics do it, every 6 years. I don't know if it's every 6 years. Lives become a little bit faster these days. I think maybe you take 6 months every 3 years or something like that.
And do you find time just in your ongoing week-to-week sort of existence to step out, or how do you do that in your day-to-day life?
First of all, I step out every day because my son comes back from school and we have to do homework, and I cook dinner and we chat, and maybe we play chess or watch a movie together. So for me, that's a very hard stop. He comes home at 6 o'clock and I shut off everything work related until he goes to bed. And if I really need to do something, I do it after he goes to bed. Most of the time I actually try to go to bed and get up early the next morning. But then I shut myself down, on weekends. I'm actively meditating now, and it's like I would take a whole weekend where I completely shut everything out. No books, no electronic devices, no communication with anyone. It's a very kind of healthy way to approach reality, because it absolutely helps to cleanse yourself of the daily grind, everything that you do day to day, and so I make sure that I do that.
I just started meditating at the beginning of the year, and I've got to say it's been transformative. Do you do it in the morning? Do you have a morning routine?
I do it twice a day. So first thing, I get up in the morning, and then I try to find some time in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And when I do a weekend, it happens to be a lot more, so it's kind of a much more intense, so about 4 hours altogether over every day. So
what have some of the biggest challenges, what have they been, focusing on health and wellness and health tech, coming from what you've done in the past? What's different in this industry than others you've worked in, even as an entrepreneur?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, every industry is a different industry. I think health and wellness and healthcare just tend to be a much bigger problem in terms of proportion of what the impact it is that you can have with your solutions, and also with the problems that you solve, because health is so central to the way we live our lives, and food for that matter, which is I consider as an integral part of health. And when you realize how impactful that is to everyday's life, to every person, and how much you can impact everybody out on the planet, it becomes a lot more challenging and overwhelming, but be a lot more inspiring. So, I know it's kind of a very broad vision, but that's kind of the difference, I think, is that impactfulness that you can have by being involved in that particular industry.
So I couldn't agree more. I mean, where does this go in terms of people having access to data as it relates to their food, nutrition? I go into the grocery store now or a deli, and I can't find anything to drink besides water, because the more I start to analyze it, it all has so much sugar in it, as an example. Right. Even the things that I think are healthy, like juice or smoothies or some of these things. In practical terms, in the future, what will people be able to do by having access to new types of data and structured data like you're creating for the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think data has a very, very significant way to impact human behavior, as we've seen. I mean, people start measuring anything, and they start having behavioral changes. Whether it's working hours that people used to measure, or these days the quantified self. How many steps, how many calories, what have you. I believe that data is ultimately a tool to change behaviors, and it's purely an understanding. Once you have data, you start understanding what's happening to you. And once you start understanding what's happening to you, this is the basis to start changing what you do. I cannot claim to predict the future, but what I think will happen is that as people are starting to have a lot more data available at their fingertips and start to understand how food, and not just food, everything they do in their daily life, whether it's sleep patterns and walking and the air you breathe, anything can be measured. Once you start getting this data, you start becoming conscious of the impact it has, and then you start changing behavior. Now, I think for every individual person, those behavior can be, much like yourself. I'm not going to drink juices, I'm going to drink just water and stuff like that. But I think that as more and more people are starting to make those behavior changes, suddenly society becomes to change, and that has an impact on innumerable amount of industries. That means the whole food supply chain is going to change.
Right.
Because
people won't buy the other stuff.
Correct.
We're seeing McDonald's change their chicken. We're seeing all sorts of changes, even in the last few weeks.
Yeah, McDonald's just announced earnings, and they're not doing well, and it's because people are going to healthier food. At the same time, Dig In here in New York is doing phenomenally well because they're doing farm-to-table healthy food, and they have all the the right data around it. They have calories and other information about the food. So I think that's a sign of the times. That's the conundrum of all new industries. You always think the change is going to come faster than it does, and then it surprises you when it actually comes. I think it's going to happen. I just don't know when, but there'll be a humongous impact in the way people eat and consume and how they relate to food. And I even claim to think that grocery stores are going to change the way they are. There might be a lot more direct relationship with farmers and agriculture, and farm to table is going to become the way people live. That's in the Western world. I think in the developing countries there is a lot more other impact that you can have. You can educate farmers in India, for example, to grow potatoes that have more vitamin A, because that will reduce the incidence of eye diseases and stuff like that. So just having this data can make meaningful impact to lives of millions of people. So, I think the data has a way.
So are there, just in practical terms, imagining how people interact with this data? Apple Watch was just announced, and is it the type of thing that people may experience in some invisible way or in some very specific way when they're in the grocery store, when they're in a restaurant, or even on a farm? Is it the type of information that the farmers are using as they're assessing their crops?
The answer is,
or all of them.
All of them, all of the above. I think technology is its best when it's invisible. So, and that's the ultimate goal. I think the Apple Watch and Samsung S Health and Microsoft and Google Fit and everybody out there is just the first step. And that technology is going to go through a million iterations before it gets where it is. But in my imagination, I see a world, 20, 30 years from now, where every single person has a virtual nutritionist. Somebody that it's a piece of software that tracks you throughout your life, and knows at every moment your blood pressure, what you eat.
Persistently, 24/7.
24/7, and it's completely invisible. It doesn't have to be on your wrist.
Right.
It doesn't have to be on your clothes. It will be on your wrist, on your clothes, on your fridge. It will be in the restaurant.
Well, diabetics are doing this today to a certain extent, right?
Correct.
And it seems like everyone could be or should be.
Absolutely.
For something so important as
Absolutely.
as food.
It feels invasive, but I think as the technology grows and data becomes seamless and invisible, people kind of get used to it, and that means that you have customized solutions for every single individual, because ultimately right now we have very, very broad tools, basically say, well, vegan is good for you, or gluten-free is good for you.
Here's how many calories, and that's the extent of it.
Right, but that's not necessarily, it might be true for you, but not for me, and vice versa. So, that combined with the data power of, personalized understanding of your DNA and what you carry and how you process chemicals and so on and so forth, all these data can be married together, and you have a truly, truly personal experience of managing your life, essentially, and your health, the way you eat, everything.
Exciting.
Oh,
So I'd like to finish off with a lightning round of questions to tap some of your wisdom, share with other entrepreneurs. So do you have a favorite book that you recommend either to other entrepreneurs or that you find yourself gifting to other people frequently?
Yeah, I do have a book that I actually have gifted maybe 10 or 15 times already, and it's the Tao Te Ching.
Oh.
So it's not
It's a great book.
It's not a how-to book or whatnot,
Sure.
but I think it's a very meditative book. You read every line there, and there is something to be discovered.
And you can reread it many, many times. And
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So what would you be doing if you weren't doing what you're doing now? Could be anything.
I think what I'll be doing is I'll probably have a health center somewhere on a Greek island, and I'll be helping people getting cleansed and get to a better place in their personal life. I think there's a lot of people that have been burdened with the way they live their life in stress and food and whatnot. And I find it very personally rewarding to be able to help people, and I accumulated some knowledge how to do it. So that's kind of like, my retirement dream,
And the Greek island, because it would be a wonderful place to be.
I don't know. It's close to Bulgaria, I guess.
Yeah.
But it could be anywhere. It could be in Indonesia. It doesn't have to be an island. It can be on a mountain. It's, I guess, a place for people to
The top of the Empire State Building, perhaps.
For example.
Yeah. Wonderful. So do you have a favorite technology or app that you use and why?
Oh, there's so many out there. For personal use, I use, all the usual ones, the Facebooks and Uber and so on and so forth, and they're great. I think professionally, what I've discovered recently is actually been quite useful. Is a small tool called Crashlytics, but for mobile app development is actually been quite useful. Going from the Dao De Jing, to very specific, recommendation.
I
At this
love it.
point of time, this is a very good tool if you're doing mobile app development.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you already talked about some of the ways you stay healthy. Anything that you recommend to other entrepreneurs to stay healthy?
I think there is an underlying philosophy about staying healthy, and that's, it's nothing new. It's always been said, being balanced. Don't overdo it. I think that in today's day and life, especially in cities like New York and in Silicon Valley, the mind tends to compare ourselves to other people, and that necessarily means, I'm not doing well if I'm not doing better than somebody else. And I think you just have to let go of that. And once you start not trying too hard, things kind of start happening a lot better for you, because you are balanced, because you're a happy individual, and you have a much more healthy attitude towards life, and that reflects on everything. You sleep more, you eat better, you have better quality time with your family, friends, and so on and so forth. So you're just a happy individual.
Wonderful. So what's your superpower?
I don't know if I have a superpower. I think that there is one thing that drives me day to day, and it might sound trite, but that's kind of, I love my kids. So, I wake up in the morning and go to bed at night. That kind of having somebody in your life that adds so much meaning is actually, very empowering. So I think of it as a superpower.
That's wonderful, wonderful. So last question, one word close on how you're feeling today.
Happy.
I love it, I love it. Well, thank you so much for everything that you do. It's inspiring work. I think it will help transform the world, and love having you as a healthcare transformer in startup health.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.